Oh yeah. Hopefully, like it's a little dark in here, just because if I turn the light on, it's like right behind here. So I feel like it'd be a little too much touched by an angel going on.
Oh man, it's just like a full glow in the background.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and here
I
he
don't really
is,
know that'd be a very
Tyler.
pleasant. That wouldn't be a very pleasant aura, and I don't have that nice accent. So.
That's so funny. All right, so we are now live, and Tyler, this is an honor, man. You are the first person. We're just kind of kicking off,
Oh wow,
this
pressure.
these member conversations. We're trying this new format, so we're kind of figuring out as we go as well. Okay,
Awesome.
but regardless of any of that, there's no time limit here. We'll probably kind of see where we're at in an hour. Um, and you obviously have Caitlin and I, so thank you for putting some time to have this conversation.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Awesome. So, I mean, we'll kick it off with like the very basics. So, you've been a member of Street Parking how long?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna say like it's during the Wadify days. Um,
Oh man,
yeah,
you're
I
going
know.
back.
So I was one of those guilty like pre-app that I would do. I would do a workout and I wouldn't log them all the time. Like I'm a guy who likes to write stuff down. So like I have little like dot journals just everywhere. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of what I was doing. I was doing that, and I was doing a bit of a bit of strength training, kind of primarily. I'd kind of gotten really curious and excited about powerlifting, so I was doing a lot of that. So and I was like, well, I've got to do something else to keep my keep my engine, since I'm in the Army Reserves. I have to do PT tests, and so I saw actually this program. It was just highly recommended in the Garage Gym reviews. The one I'm trying to think, there was a million of them at that point. Um, but regardless, it's I checked it out, and I enjoy it quite a bit. So I'm still here. So yeah.
Awesome. So, if we're looking at Wadify days, what is it, like 2018, 2019?
Yeah, I think it's 2018, like late 2018, kind of sounds about right.
I want to say somewhere in 2020 we switched over, because I remember everybody was in the old office for that morning that we turned it off.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Oh, that's right. Wow. Well, that's really cool. So prior to, because there's a lot of your story that I can't wait to touch into. Obviously, you've served before, and and Caitlin kind of briefly told me that you're a stay-at-home dad, and
Yes.
and all. Oh man, like all that's super cool. So we'll start with even just our fitness in general, and then we'll tie it into like how you've utilized your fitness and how you stay consistent with your fitness. But before Street Parking, you said you were dabbling into strength training and powerlifting. So where were you going before you had found Street Parking?
Yeah, I was actually I was really just trying to find I'd always kind of like barbell lifts and things like that. I'm wearing the barbell club shirt. That's always still kind of my bread and butter. But I was just trying to, I was trying to get strength numbers up. I've always kind of dabbled in this, that, and everything. Like in college, they had like the abs diet workout, and they had I'm really dating myself here. P90X had just come out, so my roommates and I had like dumbbells and a made DIY pull up bar in the garage and stuff like that. So I kind of bounced around the things. It's always been kind of what I do. I like having like some movement in my life. I love air conditioning, but I also like getting uncomfortable too. I also like a little bit of shared suffering, which is kind of
awesome.
So getting into the whole like army background. I'm in the Army Reserves. I've done 20 years as it. I'm a musician though.
Whoa! What instrument?
So I had to audition for that job. So I had to audition to it before I signed a contract and went to basic training. So that was pretty neat. It's been a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, let me dive a little bit deeper into that. Hold on. If you're like a musician, like an instrument, like, hey, I'm auditioning to play an instrument in the Army Reserves.
Yes.
What instrument?
I'm a saxophonist and percussionist.
All right, there we go. So, describe to me how that was applicable once you started serving.
As far as what, like playing my instrument. So we do a lot. It's really kind of a historical job. It's a public relations kind of job as well. So like we go out in the communities. I kind of joined right, at the beginnings of the global war on terrorism, when we were trying to bring our numbers back up. So like again, trying to show my age a little bit. I was like one of the last, I guess, groups of new recruits that went in wearing the actual BDUs, like everyone was wearing BDUs, and then we went to that really light colored one. But
Hold on, really cool. Hold on. I'm gonna make a note. Let's make a mental note because of BDU, like how we can start to plug in like Google Images so we can pull it up and for people to see what a BDU looks like. So these are the things that we're learning as we're going. Okay, so continue. Yeah.
It was the woodland. It was the woodland colored one that wasn't like digitized or anything like that. And you had like the black boots, you had the shine and everything like that, which was pretty cool. Like as an 18-year-old, I like, it's like I'm going to make my boots like a mirror. Now I'm kind of glad I don't have to do that because I have kids and other things to do. It's,
sure.
I always wondered why the older guys in the unit didn't really want to, have that done, or they pay somebody to do it. Now I know, years later. But anyway, so as far as like how that ties into what we did, so like I've played a lot of parades, a lot of ceremonies. We've played, we've had like a lot of troop returning ceremonies. We would go out to do those sorts of things. They kind of task those things out too. So there's always somebody that's like communicating with people that want, like say musical support for things. And then they kind of parcel it out to different commands and, some, if it's in our region. So like we're kind of Southeast, Midwest area, like we'll kind of get first dibs at it. And we're one of the few that's actually on sort of an active duty post. It was pretty active duty. It has all the cadet command there at Fort Knox. So we were pretty high operating tempo. So we do everything from ceremonies for like graduations, for troops returning home, people retiring. I mean, it's constant. We literally have our own app where we're shooting out all kinds of requests for music performances and things like that.
So okay, so you're 18 years old, and where did you kind of start that process? Like, oh, I actually want to go serve, but I'm because that's a very selective. Most of the time I hear people saying they're going to go serve, they're just going out there and figuring it out as they go.
So it's kind of weird. I actually kind of had connections to it. So, one of the things, it's the same way with like a lot, National Guard and reserves, is, you kind of get to know some people that are already in it. So in a weird way, so my beginning band teacher was also a band commander in the Army. And so I was in his band. So it was weird. I was in his band. Then his older brother was my high school band teacher. And then as I was kind of approaching graduation, kind of thinking about different options, the bug was kind of put in my ear. And my grandfather, who was he was a dentist in the Army, he did field artillery first, and then went to dental school, and he went to Vietnam. He was like a colonel and everything. And my dad was an armor officer, so it was always kind of there.
So there was the tie. It always ran through the family.
Yeah, it was. So it was. It wasn't really a very difficult decision,
right?
And I was really active as a musician. I wanted to play and perform, and I've gotten to do some studio stuff. I've gotten to play some pretty fun gigs, like with the Temptations and the Four Tops and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff to do.
So then you get in, and then give us like what a day-to-day would look like once you were enlisted, especially given that would you guys practice all the time? How does that look?
It just depends. So like so we kind of have up through the summer, we kind of I guess I'll start kind of like say in September or so, because that's kind of when we start a new cycle of things. So we start kind of just like piecing together. Like we get an idea of what our year is going to look like. We kind of map that out. We know what the big moments are going to be. We know that we're going to have some ROTC graduations. We know we're going to have monthly retirement ceremonies. And so we just kind of knock the cobwebs off of some of those things that are typically requested. And then we try to kind of piece together is like, okay, if people retired, if people transferred, if people are going to be in different type, like say if they're going to go to leadership training, like ALC, SLC, MLC, whatever. We're trying to figure out what's our personnel going to look like at different parts of the year. And then we try to put together performing groups, either larger or smaller, from those. And then we kind of just take a stab at different types, like different playlists with different set lists or whatever. Like if we have a pop ensemble, we're thinking, okay, like who are they going to be playing for? What kind of music are we going to do? What's our sound and lighting crew going to do with that? What's our production team going to do to kind of make that make sense, other than, it's like trying to differentiate between being like a cover band and actually telling a message. So we have a team of people who will do that sort of thing. And so we try to develop those sorts of, like, say, with our pop group or with our sit down concert band or anything like that, a jazz group that we have. It just kind of depends. We make different groups. We have people start arranging music. So that's kind of the beginning part of the year. If we have, like, say, a Christmas parade or something like that, we'll kind of work through that too. Holiday concerts, we'll do that sort of stuff as well. And then we hit about January, February, and that's when we really kind of ramp up the musical side of it. So we kind of start off the year doing a lot of mandatory trainings, the things that we have to do, like cyber security, like operational security, things like that everyone's supposed to do. And then we do our physical fitness test, like ours is in October. So I'm sprinkling a little bit of the ACFT stuff because having a new baby, especially with his medical conditions, kind of threw me off my game for a little while. So trying to get back into that, just because I got to let him know that I'm still here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a story that I want to touch on for sure that Caitlin had brought up. There's a couple things that, like, I find very fascinating, and I love that you're sharing the story, right? Because I mean, it's something that I would never even thought about. Like, oh, okay, like the whole musical, musician side to this process here, right? And okay, so I don't want to gloss over this little feature that you dropped about working with the Temptations here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about, like, how that came about, and then what that experience was like.
Well, yeah, it's pretty weird. It really just kind of comes down to, guys that I went to college with, guys I played like gigs with. It's just kind of knowing people and like being a good enough musician and a decent person to hang out with. Like they want to know that you can play and that you're a good hang. That's it. And then after that, I mean, it just
what is that? What does that? They want to know that you can hang mean?
Meaning you're not a jerk. Like some people,
Sure.
they're like good at something and they're not humble about it.
Yeah, sure.
Or they're just like, oh, I'm better than everybody. You're just not putting on airs or anything like that.
Sure.
You're going to go, and if there's like a, local taco shop that's really good or a local coffee shop, you're going to go with the rest.
Those C rated food trucks. Like, I'm down. Like,
for sure.
It's okay if we get some food poisoning. I'm totally down. Sure.
Yeah, play through it. Just that adds an interesting mix. I always like those sorts of things because there's a lot of stuff that you're not like, you don't really get the music on those stands. Like you get there and the musical director, is usually someone from Detroit. But they pass out your music. You do like an hour rehearsal of just the horns. And then you go up on stage and you're up on stage with like the sound crew. So you don't actually perform with the singers until it's curtains up. And so you're just like watching the musical director, listening to the rhythm section and, just making sure that, you're locked in, which I kind of enjoy. I kind of like that, that teetering the line of like, if you're not locked in, it could be a disaster. I love that element of music, really. Sort of things, studio work, things like that. They're all kind of the same like that.
How old were you around that time?
Oh gosh, it's all such a wash now. I might have been I want to say that I was like in my early 30s. I'm 38,
Okay.
So I was probably like 32 or so.
I mean, so it wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. I was still teaching music at the time,
Okay.
and so that was like the first time doing that sort of thing. I got to do that, and I've actually done a couple Disney parks and cruise ships recordings too. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. Which is pretty cool. So, like Toy Story Land, for example, in Walt Disney World, when it opened up, there was like a little parade of little Green Army men, and so I was all the saxophone parts on that one. Then they changed it into like a Pixar cavalcade, and so it was kind of neat being there with my family a couple times. And all these people are at the parade. And I'm like, you don't know this.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm here.
That's super cool. So how involved are you still, even though you're a stay-at-home dad, but how involved are you still with like music and gigs or jobs or in that world?
It's kind of waned off a little bit. I still keep my contacts and so on and so forth, but it's something that right now I'm not doing a whole lot of it. I don't need to. I think I did my last kind of gig like that maybe a year ago. I want to say I think I did like a four tops thing over in Cincinnati or something. And that was pretty cool. Which I actually met one of the living members of the Beach Boys accidentally. It was kind of yeah. He was actually just wanting to talk to all the musicians, and then sure enough, you're like, is that guy? It's like, oh, I don't know. Looked up on our phones. You're like, yeah. Oh, yeah, cool.
That's awesome. Okay, so when you were in the Army, like at what point for yourself? When did fitness become like something that you adopted into your lifestyle?
I actually loved that part of basic training. Like I actually loved PT, and maybe it's because I was associated with food, because you'd always get up and do PT, and then next thing was like, go chow, and that was pretty cool because I was 18 years old and I could.
I mean, during that time,
It's so funny because it's just like now if I like sit next to a Baconator that's like 2 or 3 extra pounds right there, then I could just like scarf one down and hope to maintain the weight that I'm doing. But so like I enjoyed it there and I kind of wanted to keep it up. So like at my AIT, I had like a thing in my barracks just because I was bored. I didn't really have like a cell phone then except like one of those Nokia brick things. Play Snake on it,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The Nokia assault weapon. But I had a thing where I was like, all right, I'm going to do like 300 push-ups, but they'd be like different variations. So it'd be like, okay, I'm going to do diamond ones, normal width, wide width. Once I got through that, then I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to do like sit-ups. And I'd have like a thing where it was like partials and then full or whatever. And then I'd go for a run because, I was kind of bored. So, I think that was kind of part of it. And then after that, I just kind of wanted to keep that up because, I was starting to max some of the things that I wasn't maxing in basic training because I just did that out of boredom. But I've always actually kind of liked going to the gym anyways because I kind of figured, like in college, I'd go to the gym and then go lift. I'd go to the burrito place with a buddy, and then I'd practice till they kicked me.
Wow.
So that was it was very regimented. And I like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You're married. How long have you been married for?
Oh goodness. It's been long enough now. Let's see. So we got married in 2019, and I'm bad at math, but I'm going to assume that we're coming up on 15 years now.
That's awesome. And what's your wife's name?
Rebecca.
Nice. How'd you guys meet?
We met kind of through friends in high school. So I was a senior, she was a junior. And we just kind of had like some mutual acquaintances. Like she wasn't a band person. I was like hardcore band nerd. But she was, she played softball. She was in like all of the honors classes. Not like me. I was not in all of the honors classes.
You're not in, don't worry.
Yeah. I am definitely the least intelligent half here. I always like to joke. It's like you wouldn't know it, but in the time it took me to do 1 degree, she finished like 2.5.
Nice. She complimented you well. She balanced the scale.
I'll tell you a funny story with that one because I always like to tell it. Like I gotten into college, and I wasn't really doing great in my first like year and a half of it. I think I was just like C's, get degrees, and then just kind of, my friends playing. I actually wasn't a big partier. I was playing club hockey, and I'd do that, and then I'd also go hang out with my buddy and play some video games or whatever. But I remember like one night I was just talking with my dad and he was like, son, you think Rebecca wants to marry a dummy? And I was just like, huh.
Ouch.
He went on to clarify because it stuck with me really well. And I always bring it up to him in a good way because he's like, I shouldn't have called you a dummy. It's like, no, it's good. It was good. You should have. It's like, she's a smart girl and you're not a stupid guy, but you're acting kind of stupid. Do you think she's going to want to marry that? And I whatever that was like the lightning bolt or the light bulb in my brain that was like, oh, maybe I should actually like take this seriously. And I did. And, it's from there, it worked out.
So, did you ever? When was the first time you played that saxophone for your wife?
Oh, I used to solo a lot in front of the school, actually. So like,
You used to sell?
so I used to solo and like
Solo.
like if like our jazz band or something would play in front of the school, and so like I always I
Just
was
get tips.
better jazz guys, so I just played. So there probably 4 or 5 different times that I didn't know about, but a bunch of times because she's come to my concerts and so on and so forth. We actually have engagement pictures where she's got like stethoscope and white coat, and I have a saxophone and then like kind of a dorky jazz looking hat. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so how many kiddos you guys got?
We have 3.
What's the spread?
So we have a 10-year-old. His name's Liam. We have a 6-year-old named Audrey, and then we have a 5. Is it 5 months to? Yes, 5. It's 5 months and a few days now. It's all such a blur. 5-month-old named Owen, and again, just had heart surgery 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. Like I know that Caitlin brought up to me that that's been a situation that you guys have been dealing with in your life. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that's been for you guys.
Well, we knew going in there were some complications with this pregnancy. My wife had gestational diabetes during it, and so on and so forth. So we had to change our diet quite a bit. But we had a cardiologist and everything like that, and we're looking at it. And we knew going in that he was going to need his heart repaired. He had what's called he had like a complete AVSD, which for me, I can't even remember what. I think atrials. My wife would be able to tell me in a heartbeat, but she's at work right now. But what that really meant is that he didn't have valves in his heart that were like completely connected, like different chambers. It was really just a wide open muscle essentially.
Sure.
So at some point he was going to have those constructed. So everything up until from his birth till 3 weeks ago was all about just getting him to about 10 pounds or so to be able to perform that surgery. And so everything in between there was, making sure that the calories are right. So we were dealing with a dietitian. We were dealing with, as cardiologist, we were talking with a pediatric cardiovascular surgeon. And we were on all kinds of medicines, managing his heart to make sure it wasn't going to fail, which sounds really frightening. And I think it was kind of frightening to me before he was born, but it's one of those things where you're kind of in it. You don't really notice like the enormity of the thing that you're doing. Like you're just doing it because you have to,
Sure.
Wake up, give him his diuretics, make sure that he's eating the right amount at the right time. Watch for these things, make sure you contact your cardiologist. So it's kind of, so I guess leading up to it, we're checking for different signs like sweating and his breathing and stuff.
Right.
But we'd had him scheduled for, I believe, this August 6th. He got pushed back a little bit because there are some other kids that were more critical than his, because his was I don't want to say he was like an easy surgery, because they literally went in and rebuilt his heart. It was one of the easier ones for the surgeon we had. So anyways, we went in on August 8th and spent, I believe it was 5 or 6 days in the hospital with him. So that first day was about 8 to 12 hours of him just prepping for surgery and recovering. And it was, I didn't want it, like when we were in his recovery, I didn't want to put my hands on him because I was so scared I was going to detach something or whatever. Yeah. After a couple days, once they started taking things out, like, chest tubes and stuff like that, then I was a little more comfortable. But it was just astonishing how quickly babies recover.
Oh my gosh.
How resilient kids are. Like, I mean, if I had that sort of thing, I would still be laid up in bed, and my wife would be annoyed with how whiny I'd be.
Sure.
But I mean, he's actually kind of snapping a little bit, kind of numbing on his hands.
Talk to me a little bit about like the first time you guys heard that news and what that reaction, how that feel for you guys.
felt a little bit like, so it was kind of piling on. So we found out one that he has Down syndrome, at the same time. Like, we learned about the Down syndrome diagnosis. We have 2 kids that have autism, high functioning autistic kids that, like they do schoolwork well. They read, they verbalize, they do really well. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of early intervention. It's a lot of going to therapy. It's a lot of learning how to teach things, like eating with a spoon. Like, how do you break that down? How do you, how do you teach, like, taking your right hand and touching your left toe? You have to think about a lot of those things sometimes, just depending on the child. And so it's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. And so I think at first we were like, oh man, like, we're getting older, and like we're getting ready to go back through a lot of these sorts of things. So at first there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of fear.
Yeah, because 10, 6, and then 5 month like that's some time, away from like another baby. So yeah, you guys had that window before introducing the third. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we were pretty worried about it, just because again, we're she's 37, I'm 38. We'd done a lot for our other 2 to get to where they're we feel like they're going to have a good life. They're going to be able to work in probably careers that they want to. But it's been a lot of work and a lot of energy, a lot of resources. We're fortunate though that we have her mother, her in-law, my in-law are excellent. Like, I love them to death. And they kind of retired around the time our first was born. Like, they retired from their jobs shortly after that. So they've saved us a lot of money on not having to go to daycare.
Sure. So they're close by.
Oh yeah. One's about 35 minutes away. The other one's about 20.
Awesome. How often do they come and support you guys?
Oh, they'll probably come tomorrow, because I coach our kids cross country team, actually. Yeah, so they'll be here probably tomorrow. I don't know which set will be here, but they'll be here probably to watch watch Owen, just because we're not super comfortable having him out in a lot of heat yet, because we're not trying to stress his heart too much while still in recovery. We still have about 2 or so more weeks before we can start kind of pushing a few things. Like, I can't pick him up under his arms or anything right now, but I'll scoop him. But no, they're super helpful. If they don't have anything going on, they love to be here, and they love to be in our kids' lives. So we're pretty blessed there.
That's special. So how long was when Owen went through that surgery? How long was the surgery?
Gosh, I want to say the surgery itself was probably 5 hours, but the prep of it and the finish of it, I'd say altogether was probably 8 or 9. I don't know. I could probably ask my wife, and she'd have an exact number. She's that kind of person.
During those times, like, what kind of mode did you find yourself going into as a father? Like, just autopilot, like, this is I got to dial in, I got to stay strong, or like, how was that?
Yeah. So I'm one of those that's, my wife will like kind of stress about things long term, and I kind of tend to be the opposite. So we kind of bounce off each other that way. And that, I kind of tend to be the one that's like, we've done what we can. Hayes barn, we can't. There's not much we can do but trust that the outcome is going to be the outcome it's supposed to be. And so, she knew going in, like, his chances of coming out of it pretty well. And so her things were just like, how long is he going to be on bypass? How long is he going to be what is he using for anesthesia? And so, those are things she knows and talks about, because she works in operating rooms. So for me, a music guy, I'm just like, all of these people are way smarter than me. I kind of have to just trust them.
Sure.
So I was probably a lot calmer about it. I think there are a few moments where I was like, but what if?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
and I'm not in there. I don't see it. I don't see it going on. But, I was really comfortable with the care team that that was around him and the job that they were going to do. So I was also really tired because we'd gotten up at probably 4 a.m. and driven to Cincinnati to get him checked in and all those sorts of things.
How did your older kiddos? How were they through this whole process?
They've been great, honestly. It helps that again they're really close with our in-laws. So so they didn't really have a whole lot of problems. Our youngest, our middle child, probably had a few more issues with with separation and things like that. She kind of deals with that now. Like if we're in a different part of the house, and she hasn't checked on us, like she may holler for one of us to make sure we're still there. And so we're working through that too. But all in all, like they're great siblings. The oldest, especially, which we didn't expect at all. We didn't expect him to really take to being a big sibling again. But yeah, he loves his baby brother.
That's so special. That's good. What does your wife do for work?
She's an anesthesiologist.
Okay.
So yeah, she's been doing that for 10 years.
So her being in that field then, how did that? Obviously, that she's a mother, so that natural feeling of like, and it's her child, your guys' child. Did it help her understand that process a little bit more, or like speaking with the doctors or the language? Yeah.
And they kind of got to know that, especially in a lot of those. Like they would get the drawings out for me, but for her, like she would ask like really highbrow questions, and then I would just bide my time. I'd wait till we were in the car going. It was like, so what did that mean? But she made sure she knew just about every detail that she could know. And so I think that was, I know for her, that was probably stressful because she knows outcomes more so than myself. But it was also kind of reassuring that that because she has that background, I think sometimes there's a bit more deference to like say things she thought were concerning. And so, it was at least comforting on my end. And I think I was able to be a somewhat calming presence for her as well. I think, I'm probably getting kind of lost in my thoughts here, just because I'm just kind of remembering how things with it. But I think her expertise and her connections definitely helped because we were able to get in contact with a great surgeon at Cincinnati. Our cardiologist is someone that she's worked with before and respected quite a bit, and he's been excellent. She went to medical school with our pediatrician, and so so anything that's gone wrong, which he's had hospitalizations for things like GI issues and whatnot leading up to it. Like just text him. I think one of the times when we had to actually go to the PICU for like 3 or 4 days or something, she had texted the pediatrician something, and she was at a baseball game or something, and she just said, "I would take him now." So it's been helpful having kind of that knowledge base and then having those resources.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And I'm probably talking in circles on those.
No, that's cool. So when it comes to when was the decision? You're a stay-at-home dad now. Talk to us about how the decision was made and what that looks like.
Well, so I was teaching band and music classes. I was teaching in school through high school. I taught 1 year in college for saxophone too. But she was getting the end of residency. We had our first child in medical school, kind of in between that and the start of her first year of residency, and then we had our second one while she was in residency, and we didn't really want to we kind of talked about what we were going to do once she was finished with residency because they get paid, but it was about like what I was making as a teacher with a master's degree, and so. It was a lot of it was a lot of work. And I taught a competitive marching band. So in the fall, when she was a resident, there's probably 1 month every single year in the fall where we might see each other a couple days a week. I mean, yeah, it was nose to the grindstone. And so we kind of talked about, it's like, okay, well, who's going to be the one that's going to be able to take care of going to therapies, going to medical appointments, if there's an emergency in the house or whatever, who's going to take care of that sort of stuff? And it's kind of weighing it. It's like, okay, well, whose salary are we going to miss? Well, right. Not mine, but so that was really what it is. And so, and so here I am, and I tell you what, it worked out pretty great with a pandemic that happened, so that helped a bit. But as far as like what the day-to-day goes, like, I try to get up about 5 a.m. here. And it just kind of depends if I get up then, or if I don't. Like yesterday I got up and I hopped on my treadmill and just did a walk for 20 minutes just to kind of get the sleep out of my eyes. And I packed lunches and helped get pumping supplies packed up, and then got kids' backpacks ready and made sure their outfits were ready and so on and so forth. And so kind of from about that time till about, I want to say 8 a.m., like it's all focused on getting every person that's supposed to be out the door and where they're supposed to. And so, and in there, I'm also, feeding a baby somewhere in there. So 9 o'clock, again, baby just had heart surgery. He has all kinds of medicines he has to take. So we call them 9 o'clock medicines because it's 9 a.m., 9 p.m. So he takes his medicines then. And then after that, I'm either doing some like stuff from PT or OT that he was assigned. If he takes a nap though, that's when I pick I pick something. Like yesterday, I did a hybrid of I did a shift program B hybrid. Like I knew I wanted to push some weights on the squats, nice. But I also knew that if I'd done program B as written, it probably would have been ended early because he probably would have woken up to either interact or eat. And so I had my basement door open. So he was in his, he was sleeping. I could hear him. I just knocked it out there, and I did so I did like the get ups. I did them with I had a dumbbell for that, and I did squats with a barbell, and then I did box jumps, and it did what it I feel like I got out of it what I needed to get out of it. So I remember the question that was in the Facebook group about, and some people are very good about being regimented about that, and I think I was with my first two. Right. I get up and I had a time that I was going to do it, and it was just about every single day that I was training or whatever. It was in the morning before everyone else got up. Now with a third in the mix that has some healthcare, health concerns and so on and so forth, it's a little more fluid. So, it's taken learning how to communicate my needs for getting fitness done, rather than just like getting that time myself before anyone else is awake, just saying, hey, I'm going to take 20 minutes and I'm going to, or 30 minutes, I'm going to go and do just a steady state run, or I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to knock out the street workout. And then, it's really been a good exercise as far as like in a relationship, like getting better at communicating your needs or what and if she's like, well, maybe right now is not the best time. Could you do that in an hour? Yeah, that's fine. Sure. And if she's like, I want to take the kids on a run. Cool. I'll stay at the house with Owen. You go take them on a run. I'm sure you're tired of being inside anyways. So it's a little more fluid. But what it kind of boils down to, I know that one day I'm going to want to try and get some of my strength numbers back up, like my bench press or my squat or my deadlift, or, like I was working on a super total that I was hoping would be respectable. But right now it's just being within striking distance of that, but also not being like all of my other friends that are in their late 30s and be like, oh, my back and knees, I can't do anything.
Right.
I'm not going to be that person. I'll tell you who's kind of my inspiration for that is my papaw on my side, is my grandfather on my dad's side. He's in his mid 80s and he still sometimes golfs 18 holes.
Wow.
But he had a quadruple, I think, bypass like in his 60s.
Wow.
And so my mammy was my grandma, who she was a caterer for all of her life, made cakes and catered weddings and stuff. She kind of locked him down a bit, because what people typically do, of course, they might have some cigars and drink beer. So she put the kibosh on that. She's like, yeah, no more cigars and beers at the golf course. No more just using a golf cart to go to every single hole you're going to walk them.
Wow.
And, he's, still kicking, still thriving.
So how, looking at that, like how during this season, especially these last 5 months, right? Like how would you say your mindset around fitness has shifted, or what kind of new insight have you gained because of the season of life and towards your fitness?
Well, I think it just has gone more towards longevity. Like I want to feel good longer. It's not so much about chasing a number. It's more about, feeling better, feeling like I can keep up with my kids. I also play in an adult league hockey, starting up in a month. I want to feel like I'm going out there and I can actually contribute with the guys out there, even if they're, some of them are older than me, some of them are younger, but I don't want to feel like I'm holding them down either. And then conversely, I want to be able to also keep doing those sorts of things. And say, hey, you hear him? He's chatty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Chatty fellow. But, so I guess it's really kind of shifted towards, longevity and being able to be for my family, not wanting things that are kind of in my family history, like heart disease and diabetes, like that do exist there. I don't want those to creep into our home because I didn't do something about it. I mean, if genetics says I'm going to have some sort of thing happen, I can't help that. But there are things I can control and
prevent it, like back
and
then.
so I do my best to be in control of those things. Mm-hmm. And so that's I guess that's where I'm really at. And just kind of like, if it's not what I want it to be, or if I'm just, because a lot of times I'm in my own head, especially if I'm doing endurance work. It's like, well, what if hard for me on the treadmill is only going, like with 6.5 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour, and for like a minute or 2 minutes, like that might feel hard for me, today. I know I've gone faster than that, and I know that's in there. I know it's in the tank, but I have to acknowledge that, I can't say, well, I'm going to go and, really like lock in on that right now, because I may not have time for that. I can't always hit the pavement. I can't always devote an hour every single day to, to really focus on some sort of thing and chase a number.
Right. So you found that that has helped your discipline and just kind of shifting your perspective on fitness now.
Yeah.
Being for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, cool. Because have you found that during the season as well, like how has that been for your mental sanity, being able to still consistently get movement in?
I always find that it's quite a bit, it feels pretty refreshing most of the time to be able to get that in. Because I'll say that there was a time period early on, and before he was born and shortly after he was born, when we were constantly just back in the hospital or we were in the NICU. There were times where it kind of is like, well, what's even the point? It's like, I'm gonna hop on the train and then it's gonna get derailed. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to shake. It's still there, it's still I'm a little more resilient to it than I used to be, and I feel like I'm getting more resilient to it because I know the payoff is better, and I always feel better. And so I guess it's kind of just having a daily mental conversation. with, just to say, okay, well, I need to do this. Okay, this might look daunting, but what if I start off just doing this, and I've convinced myself to at least step in the door, and then I find out it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can add the push-ups to the burpees today, or maybe I can add 10 pounds to the bar today. Maybe I can add 4 inches to the box jumps. Like if I get through a round, I'm like, this feels pretty good. I'm gonna take it up a little bit.
Nice. So has there been anything in the street parking that's allowed you, like any of our slogans or any of our sayings or any of the podcasts, that has allowed you to overcome that daily conversation and just have a humility around fitness to realize like, oh, this is, no matter what I'm doing, it's still making forward progress?
Yeah, I think it's just the constant messaging that's been around, just showing up, and the whole more than nothing thing. It's always nice to say, it's like, I did something, like if I took 10 minutes and did like a push-ups and air squats type deal, that was something. And it was better than me sitting on the couch and feeling sorry for myself. And so I think I keep that in my mind a lot, is as far as that whole idea of like consistently doing more than nothing. It's like I'm marrying two phrases together here. It's been helpful because it kind of helps you get little wins. When I was trying to come back on the horse, it's like, okay, I've done a little bit of something. All right, I can start doing this now. Well, what if I add a little bit more to it? All right, I'm kind of just developing those daily wins, even if it's just small. So I guess I'm trying to think of a way to like round that out.
Well, I like what you said, right? You did take the two phrases, and that's why they're so big within our community, right? Like more than nothing still adds to the consistency is key, right?
Yeah.
And so they complement each other, but they keep you on the path, and that's what we're trying to get across in our messaging. Is just like, hey, you brought up the phrase like, oh, I worried about jumping on the train and getting derailed, and then I bring up like, well, how fast of a train are you jumping on?
Right. Yeah. I think it's comparing. It's like, well, what was I like whenever I was, like 28, or whenever I was this or that. And, I'm just like, they say like comparison is the thief of joy.
The thief of joy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so sometimes I'll look at, it's like, well, man, I was slinging weight, like 3 years ago. Like, I mean, solid. I don't know that I could do those right now. And that sometimes, that can be a defeating message. It's like, okay, I didn't have 3 kids. I wasn't responsible for like getting the household fed and making sure everybody was, getting to where they needed to go, and taking care of this and taking care of that. It's like life happened, and I'm managing life, and that's a lot bigger than chasing things that I used to do. And so, I think it's just kind of acknowledging like the importance of what I'm doing now, versus what I was doing then.
Yeah, absolutely. Miranda, and I just want you to know too, like even those daily conversations that you're having, I just want to normalize them and let you know that those are conversations that Miranda and I are having every day. Every day I look back and I'm like, man, but I was doing those kinds of numbers, but I was doing that kind of work, because it's like, and we see it as a major drop off in our fitness, but in reality, it's like, no, I think we're just kind of understanding that health and fitness are more important above just fitness, and our life does change. We go through these seasons right now. You're being, with your 3 kiddos, you're very in tune with your 5-month-old, you're staying in tune with your wife, and just like, but making sure that you're still, taking care of your body. It's so important. The phrase fitness freedom, how often when did you start to latch on and recognizing like, oh, I get fitness freedom now, and applying it into your life?
I actually kind of always have, even before, like, so I actually used to do, like when I was really chasing powerlifting numbers, like, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Barbell Medicine Bunch. I kind of liked it because they had a lot of stuff like pain and pain science, and, like training, with like say injuries and things like that. And there's always this concept of, if you had like a little bit of lower back pain, well, how am I going to get through that? Well, if it's not chronic and if it resolves itself, it's like, okay, well, day 1, I might just do toe touches. Day 2, I might do empty bar. Day 3, I might do bar with like 2 10-pound plates. and then just kind of gradually add in movement. Or if like a range of motion is tolerable versus like a full range of motion, then I change the exercise selection to get a variation that gets close to the stimulus while being tolerable while those issues are being resolved. And so it's really helpful. So like, say if I tweak my back and there's like an exercise with snatches in it, I get blocks out and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do blocks above my knee. I'm not going to do power snatches. They're going to be snatches from blocks, and I'm going to let my lower back resolve itself here, And so I think that's one thing I've always kind of dug, is that there's kind of that ability. Like I know they have you put the customizations in there. But I always kind of enjoy doing that anyways, just in case, like say if I need something because say like my knee is hurting, or if I took a puck off the lower shin at my adult league or something, and my foot feels a bit bum, I have to, I just have to modify it till it kind of resolves itself.
Yeah, because injuries at this point are inevitable, right? Like whether people are working out or they're not working out, like we start hitting those 30s, those aches and pains start to kick in.
Yeah. Like my favorite tweets, that's like my favorite tactic ever. I was reaching for a toy. I was literally like sitting on the couch reaching for a toy on the coffee table because one of my kids wanted it or something. And next thing I know, I was like on the floor, like did not want to get up for like 45 minutes. And I was like, this is terrible. Like I hate breathing right now.
I had a moment like that. I would say it was like a couple of years ago, where I was like reaching for the chalk in the chalk bucket, and I hit the bottom of the chalk bucket, and then I felt this like instant surge, like a neuro surge all across my arm. Like, what's wrong with me? Yeah. Like, what's happening to my body right now? I just can't even reach for chalk without feeling like my arm's about to jolt off my body.
Yeah,
I did it like 2 weeks ago. I was walking and stepped in a hole and rolled my ankle.
Oh man. Yeah, it's just the worst.
That's good. So it sounds like you already had a really good understanding and foundation, especially given like if you were around good coaching. It's like, hey, the key here is to find ways to continue to move and not become sedentary, because you got to keep the blood flowing through your body. And you're absolutely right. You made a good point about recognizing whether it's like chronic injury that needs to be addressed, or it's like, hey, we just need to keep finding a way to move around and stay healthy and keep our body strong. I think it bums me out too, because like, when I have conversations with people, well, I have this injury, it's like, hey man, we're walking around with injuries too, man, and we're trying to find ways to empower people to keep moving, well, that's good, man. Like, how do you prevent yourself from like feeling like you need to do more and like overcoming that mindset?
Well, I think my kids do that enough for me. If all three if like the other two, my goodness, like my middle child Audrey is she's very much likes to jump out and surprise people. My son is super easy to scare, and so it just is a matter of time before they're at each other's throats a little bit, because she's kind of a troll.
Yeah.
It's
so it just kind of gets in the way. You're like, oh, my time is super limited regardless if I want to do more or not.
So I know what time I've got. And sometimes like I know today, like I'm planning to do today's I think maybe program A. And I know that my daughter's going to want to join in. So I have to actually go find the Aldi kettlebells, the ones that I have those for the kids. And so I know I'm going to have to show that to her, and so we're probably going to do that. And so I'm probably going to have to modify it a little bit, because I'm going to, have to deal with either her attention span to it, or, her needs that, but that's fine. It's something. I'm doing something.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Like, you're getting it, man. It makes me happy to hear. And again, there's also the reality of this is just a season of life, and as long as you're staying on it, you'll be able to adjust accordingly, and do more later when you have the ability to do so. Does your wife work out with you?
No, that's one thing I've been trying to work on. She likes running.
Okay.
That's she's a cardio person.
Sure.
And that's like she thinks of all the ways she planned, like she conditioned for basketball and softball when she was in high school. She's like, I just kind of want to do those things. I'm trying. I really am. I was like, you should do this. I have the weights for us. It's like, I have this weight for you if you want to try it out. I'm trying. She's very strong headed.
Sure.
And I value that a whole lot about her. But I can't get into like there's only so much of like you should do this right now.
Right. But I think that's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, the fact that both of you guys like value fitness is the most important thing, which is super awesome. Caitlin, what questions do you have for Tyler?
Tyler, how do you get coaching cross country? How do you keep that interesting?
Good question. So I have a couple of blogs, like, because it's like I found like some little blogs for coaching kids, because we have a very large K through 2 group, and so they run like the distances they run aren't like high school where it's like everyone's running a 5K and throwing up at the end. Like it's you might get like you might have a pack of kids that are like they're really trying to do a 2K in like 8.5, 9 minutes, and you're just like, go those guys. Troopers right there, like little legs, just keep pumping. And so you kind of try to take them seriously, because they want to be good. So it's like, all right, here's what you're going to do, but I try to veil legitimate running exercises, whether it's just like metered sprints. I usually just pick a distance, say on the grass, and I'll get like, I have little buckets with little Connect 4 chips. And we do like a relay thing. It's like, all right, you have to get yours and you have to bring your chip back to the bucket, and you can't go until your teammate comes back to the bucket. So that's incentive for them all to go as hard as they can. And I have actually like I said, if I'm doing sprinting, like if I'm trying to work on hills, I have some ladders because I want to teach them to lean in, and kind of have like a little bit shorter stride that's a little more explosive. But how did I get into it? Because I never did cross country. But my kids like running. They're both very tall, long legs. They just, so we'd reached out because we knew our school had a cross country club, and the person who had been coaching it was looking to find new coaches. And they're like, well, would you all be interested in helping? You're like, well, yeah, we could be like assistants, help out wherever. And they're like, all right, cool. I think we have someone who's going to be the head coach. And then like after a little bit, like, hey, can you guys be the head coaches? And I'm just like, okay, sure, let's do this. So, but it's been fun. It's kind of being out of the classroom right now. It kind of in some ways like scratches the creative itch as far as planning things. Yeah. So like, I'll put in, it's like, okay, we are going to run a 2K today, but I might do 1,600 of that as legitimate, like nonstop running. Like our theme this year has been like, don't stop, find a pace that you can go to. Like, so we had a whole lesson on running like Meemaw, like,
sure.
You see like some of those old guys that like will run for 4 hours every
morning.
Crazy.
And it's crazy.
It's like, I couldn't do that right now, but they're like 70, 80 years old, and they have that old guy shuffle, and it works.
It works. Yeah, absolutely. I remember getting passed by those guys back when I was 19 doing 5K. And I was like, what's happening here?
It's frustrating. Because they're saving it. It's good energy conservation. And it's starting to take heart. Like we actually came home with a little more hardware last weekend than we did the year before at that same meet. So, I feel like it's like, all right, the thing I've been, talking about over and over again is kind of registering a little bit. Nobody did a 2K in 90-degree heat in 20 or more minutes. They all were in 15 minutes or less or whatever.
That's so cool. That's fun too when you get like a group of kids that are just like in it and are for it and to want to better themselves. That's super fun.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Then we do have some kids that they like stopping on the course and finding dandelions and picking those
up.
They do. They just some of them are there to find friends, and there's a couple of them that will find friends and hold hands. And you know what? They're like first graders. Sure, whatever. You're out here, and others aren't. Yeah, have fun.
That's funny. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, we got a couple minutes left. If you have any questions for us, or Caitlin, you have any other questions? It's been really cool to hear your story, Tyler. Honestly, and want you to know, and I'm grateful that Caitlin brought up your name for a conversation because we're really proud of you, man. And just know that you're not alone in this community, and how we can continue to support you and with the fitness and stuff. We're here for you. and just wish you the best with all this stuff with your family, and you're a great father.
Well,
So
I
it's really
appreciate
cool.
that. Yeah, I appreciate it. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of parents, and that's one thing I appreciate with the street parking bunch. There's a lot of parents in there that take parenting very seriously, and so I don't feel weird for that. Like it.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, I wouldn't anyways, but
Yeah.
but it's just kind of nice. Like even like I'm in the men's the Wolfpack group, and it's like, and they're all like way more fit than I am, But I just kind of like that accountability.
Hey, you don't know what that range of motion looks like. You don't know that.
No, I don't. I just assume it, but that's okay. They're just assuming mine too, So
That's right.
So maybe we're all just holding our cards, whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have any questions for us, brother?
Man, this is like. It's like in a job interview where it's like, what do you have? I'm probably going to have it when I go get in the car rider line for my daughter. Like
I don't feel pressured either, man. We're
Yeah.
just, whatever we can serve you in this moment,
I don't know. Just keep doing what y'all are doing. I mean, it's,
Okay.
like just keeping that sort of stuff out there. I mean, it's helpful. I always say it's like, it's probably like, I try to tell people, it's like if you want to be able to do, like if you're trying to figure out, like if I'm doing, like say if I'm planning some sort of physical fitness type deal for my like, PT for my unit, sometimes we'll do that like in an afternoon or something. Like I've occasionally taken from a little bit of like say the ACFT planning stuff, or like an endurance exercise or something, and then I go and tell them, it's like, guys, this is like, you all are in the military with me. This is a $15 a month thing, and it has like all of this stuff. Like, take your pick. If you want to get good at like, slinging a kettlebell and carrying a rucksack, Merry Christmas. It's there for $15 a month. That's like not a lot of money to have. Like, really great value.
That's good. Well, I'm grateful. We're grateful that we have a representative like you out there, just speaking the good word, and just check in with us, man. Let us know how you're doing, Caitlin. I know we'll be checking in with you as well, and we hope we get to meet you in person at a meetup sometime in the future.
Oh yeah, if I can swing it, I sure would.
Tyler, what state are you in? I know you're on the East Coast.
Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, my brother. Hey, you have a good rest of the day. You say hi to the fam for us. Take care of those kiddos.
All right. Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Thank you all.
All right.
See
Take
ya.
care, brother.
See y'all.